What's up guys, Captain Blade J52 here. Now, I originally intended for this particular video to be the next in our What If scenario series. However, due to so many events and things going on in STO at the moment, I wanted to take a little bit of time and touch base with you guys on some of those things, as well as to get a budget build out there for you guys on one of the new ships. Now, as of this past Thursday at the time of filming this, we got the new Season 12 patch, which brought along with it the new Lucari reputation, as well as the new Zenkethi Battle Zone and PvE queues. We also have the first featured episode of the series. We have our new Undiscovered Lockbox, which is where our Atlast Dreadnought, or the Prototype Dreadnought, comes from today. We also have the new Pulse Phasers. Just about lost my train of thought there for a second. Anyway, we have our Pulse Phasers, which is a new type of phaser weapon we're going to be taking a look at here today. We also have our Tier 6 NX Escort refit, which is something a lot of people have been after for a while, myself included. And we also have the anniversary event, which released a bit earlier than what I was expecting. So needless to say, quite a bit going on in the world of STO at the moment. Now, as far as acquiring one of the new Dreadnoughts goes, whenever you're lucky enough to get a pack from either the exchange or the lockbox, you'll have the choice between either the Atlast Dreadnought for Federation characters, the D9 for Klingons, or the Thrive Warbird for the Romulans. Well aware I probably butchered the name, not gonna lie, I probably did. But all joking and everything aside, as far as the Atlas itself goes, it is restricted to the Federation only as far as the ship itself goes. Same thing with the D9 for Klingons and the Thrive Warbird for the Romulans. Now, one question that some people do ask from time to time when something like this happens is, how can a Klingon or how can a Federation character get a hold of the trait and the console for the opposing faction? And the answer to that is through the use of the cross-faction equipment packs. So a Federation character that's looking to buy the stuff from the D9 Dreadnought can do so through the use of a cross-faction pack, or somebody looking to buy for the Atlas can do so similar to what was done through the implementation of the Kelvin Intel Dreadnought or the Vengeance. So same general idea there. But that's the big stuff going on at the moment in the world of STO. Now, our budget for today is going to be a bare bones budget. I've not really done one of these in a while. I'd been putting a bit of focus more on my mid-range budgets, which is sort of the transition phase between the high end and the low end. But I want to put out a couple more bare bones as well. That way people can see you still can do fairly well, even if all you have is just the bare minimum and very little resources in order to work with. Now, since it's been a while that I last did a bare bones budget, I'm going to actually make one little parameter change to my bare bones budgets, and that is the implementation of a 2 million EC spending limit. Now, the EC could come from, maybe that's what you had left over after you bought the ship. Maybe you threw everything you had at the ship itself to get it, and you convinced a friend to front you 2 million EC to get started. Or maybe you decided to bust open a random key, and you got the ship that way, and were able to save up a little bit of EC as you leveled. Whatever the reason, however you want to say that you got a hold of the EC, that's what we're going to assume is our spending limit. As far as equipment and everything else goes, it has to be free or absolutely as dirt cheap as possible, and that's going to be the parameters for our bare bones budgets. Now, going ahead and getting into our equipment, we should probably get started. Now, for our equipment today, we actually went with a phaser setup for the ship. We have 6 of the DMG ×2 phasers. These come from the Everything Old is New mission. You can also get them in a Crit D ×2 variety as well. Now, I went with these phasers because they're the best in terms of guaranteed mods. You know what you're going to get, and the mod setup isn't all over the place like some of the other mission reward items are. Now, we also have our Quantum Phase Beam Array, which is also paired up with our Quantum Phase Converter. Those come from the Sunrise mission. We'll take a look at the console in a minute. Now, our Quantum Phase Beam Array, it's a beam array that deals phaser damage. It drains a little bit of shields from the enemy and also restores your own shields, so that's one reason why we wanted that particular phaser there. Now, for our money item, one of the things that we were able to purchase was a new pulse phaser. This is a DMG x2 Crit H. This is at the Mark 12 variety. Now, these particular phasers, to get one with decent mods, you're looking at anywhere from, at the time of filming this, about 875k to as high as 2 million or more. So you've got to kind of shop around a little bit in order to get good mods. I was lucky enough to score this one for about 1.5, so not too terribly bad. Now, the thing about these phasers that makes them unique, and I see a lot of people trying them out at the moment, is the actual proc that they give. Now, with standard phasers, you have the system offline, and with the quantum phase, you have the shield drain, which also buffs your own shields. Now, what makes these so unique is the fact that they also do a -10 to all damage resistance rating, while also granting you a +10 damage resistance rating. So they debuff the enemy and make them easier to kill, while buffing you and making you harder to kill. So essentially, a lot of people have been saying that these make standard disruptors obsolete, something that I believe we're going to have to wait and see on. In terms of procs, yeah, I can kind of see it, but overall, I still don't think it's going to be as bad as people are saying. But continuing on, as far as our shields, our engines, our warp core and stuff, this is one y'all have seen me use quite a bit, and is what I would consider a staple at the budget end as far as tanking is concerned. We have the Soul Defense Space Set, which comes from the Midnight Mission. You can see our set bonuses here, which is one reason why we actually use the set. We get a equivalent of a free neutronium armor just by having 2 pieces of the set equipped on the ship, which is 35 kinetic damage resistance and 25 all energy damage resistance rating, which is a pretty sizable thing to have for free. Then we also have our Discharge Repair Nanites, which is one of the main reasons we're actually using this set, aside from the other defensive values it gives. Now, this is a very potent heal. It activates in a 10-kilometer sphere. It's on a 2-minute recharge, can affect up to 5 people, including yourself. It's 16,045.7 hit points to allied ships within 10 kilometers. Affected ships restore 4,862.3 hit points to allied ships and fighters in a 3-kilometer radius, and those numbers can be affected by your hull restoration. So your numbers will probably read a little bit different from mine, because I highly doubt we all have the exact same amount of hull restoration on our ships. But anyways, that's one of the main reasons we use the Soul Defense set, is because of the very potent heal whenever you need it. Is just something that, in my opinion, is very, very hard to pass up, especially also for the free damage resistance as well. But as far as the shields themselves go, we get a bit of a buff to shield healing. You can see it reduces all energy damage to shields by 10%, so that's something we have there. Then we have our impulse engines. When hit by directed energy attacks, you have a 25% chance to gain 3.5% turn rate and 0.75% defense for 15 seconds, effect stacking up to 5 times. So, pretty decent little chunk of stats there, definitely nothing to sneeze at. As far as the deflector goes, it's pretty standard in terms of the stats that it gives, not really anything that makes it stand out a whole lot from regular deflectors. Then since the Soul Defense set actually doesn't have a warp core, we had to go get one, and the one that we have is our Temporal Phase Overcharged Warpcore. This is one I've used quite a few times now. As far as the stats that it gives itself, again, not a lot that makes it stand out too much. However, the Capacitor is what sets this apart from ordinary warp cores. Now, if you were here for the Delta recruitment event, you're probably familiar with a little device known as the Temporal Negotiator. Now, basically what the Temporal Negotiator did was you put it in your device slots, and once you hit that device, it gives a 50% cooldown reduction on bridge officer abilities for as long as it's active. And that's essentially what you have here in the form of a warp core capacitor. It's a Temporal Negotiator type effect, as well as a bit of a boost to your aux power. So definitely something good to have in a pinch. But it's what we have as far as weapons or shields and that sort of thing. are devices I like to think of as purely personal preference. However, you can get the Subspace Field Modulator, which is a good device from the Skirmish mission. Very nice to have when you want to have a bit of damage reduction. And I should also mention, just in case I forgot, is the Temporal Phase Warpcore actually comes from the Butterfly mission as well. Don't think I said that before, so wanted to throw that in there. And if I already said it, then whoops. But anyway, continuing on, for our engineering consoles today, we actually have our Quantum Phase Converter. This is a universal console, but we have it in engineering space. Now, the Quantum Phase Converter is a bit of a buff to phaser damage, as well as it goes along with the set bonuses for the Quantum Phase set. Now, the 2 set bonus, not really that impressive, but since it is active, I wanted to go ahead and show that to you guys. The real strength of the Quantum Phase set is in the 3 set that it has there, which is a bit of a sort of a phaser damage beam and everything. I didn't want to use the 3 set because I would have had to put a torpedo on the ship. Not that I have anything against torpedoes, I just didn't think it would fit in this particular build. Then the next thing that we have is our Sustained Radiant Field. This is one thing that you guys have seen me use before, I'm sure. It's 20% to hull healing and shield healing, as well as 10% to all weapon damage. So very nice to pair up with our Quantum Converter for phasers, which Quantum Converter essentially functioning as a 5th tactical console in a way. Then we have our Simulated Module, which comes from our Omega Reputation. You can see some of the stats it gives there, some crit chance and severity, as well as some other good stuff. Now later on down the road, I do believe that the Assimilated Module and the Sustained Radiant Field will eventually become outclassed by especially the low-buy consoles once you have access to those. But for now, at the lower ends of the budgets, they're definitely something nice to have. Now our Reputation consoles come from the Iconian Reputation and the Omega Reputation specifically, and they'll cost you about 15,000 dilithium in order to obtain, so about 2 days worth of dilithium apiece. The total time for the build was about 6 days, and that's only due to the dilithium refinement limitations. Otherwise, you could pretty much have this build in a day if you wanted to. Then, as far as our other consoles, now, I did mention previously that we would start seeing some Cabali equipment occasionally make its way into our budget builds due to the Phoenix pack and some other Phoenix items making its way into our budget builds. That's because the Phoenix items are very easy to obtain now whenever the box is around. They're only 4,500 refined dilithium per box, which is not that bad, and it's pretty much a one-for-one deal in terms of trading in the techs, or trading in the tokens. So, with that in mind, and because this is a very good ship as far as tanking that I've seen so far, I wanted to include this in our build and everything. Now, this console itself comes from the Cabali Samsar, which is now from the Phoenix Prize Pack. It was originally an anniversary ship a few years back, but now the only way to get it is through the Phoenix Prize Pack, which is only 4,500 refined lithium. And the justification for this is you got a lucky pack and decided to go with the Samsar. Now, the Regenerative Integrity Field itself is a very nice console to have. It gives 26.6% hull healing bonus, so that's something nice to have there. And then the Regenerative Integrity Field ability. This grants you 19,160.9 hit points, and that increases as HP decreases. You also receive 100% of your directed energy damage as healing for up to 20 seconds, and it triggers up to 10 times per second with a maximum amount and minimum amount that it can restore. So, very potent console to have in a pinch. Now, the other console that we have is actually the one that came with the ship, which is the Dynamic Power Redistributor Module. This one grants 11.2 damage resistance rating, as well as 17.8 directed energy damage, so nice passive ability. Then it also has a 3-part buff for whenever you activate it. The buff itself lasts for 20 seconds. As long as you are above 80% health, you get a 40% damage bonus. And if you drop below 80%, you do lose the damage bonus, so that is something to keep in mind. Then if you do manage to drop below the 80% health, you do still retain the other parts of the buff, which is a 100 bonus damage resist rating and 500% hull regen per minute for the 20 seconds. So very powerful console there, very, very good to have. And one thing to keep in mind is it can be used on any ship that you have on the character, so it is not bound to the Atlas itself. Then for our science consoles, we have 2 of the plasma exploders that come from the Embassy. These are the Mark 10 variants, so they're very, very cheap and easy to obtain. They add a plasma explosion proc to your weapons, as well as granting increased threat generation while active. So just by having these consoles on the ship, we're getting approximately 224% more threat, which is absolutely nothing to sneeze at. Then we have for our tactical consoles the directed energy distribution manifolds. These come from the terminal expansion mission, if I can words, in the Yesterday's War story arc. Now, one thing I do want to mention as far as these tactical consoles are concerned is that in order to see the terminal expanse mission, you will need to have completed all of the rest of the missions up to that point in the Yesterday's War. Otherwise, the mission itself will not be visible. So that is one thing I do want to mention there in case anybody tries to go find it but they can't see the mission. Now, we could have gone with some of the phaser relays from the new episode, the new featured episode. However, whenever I originally obtained these consoles, they weren't really available, and kind of lazied out a little bit for the video to some extent and didn't want to farm all the consoles, but that's one option that you do have available for you there, is from Science Importance. Now, this does have a singular hangar bay at the moment. It comes with the Class F shuttles. I've not really updated the shuttles yet because I'm still in the process of building the ship out at the higher end. So that's what we have there. As far as the trait goes, you can see what the trait does when at 100% hull strength to self, 3.3 hull power levels for 15 seconds whenever you use a healing ability that would put you over the 100%. So very nice to have there. As far as our skills go, we'll take a quick look at these. Now, you can see the Lieutenant Commander rank skills. This is the build that I've used quite a bit. It's one that I found a lot of success with, so it's one I like to recommend to people. And we have our Commander and Captain rank abilities. And then finally, we have our Admiral rank abilities. Now, I don't use any of the ultimate abilities, such as the engineering, the tactical, or the science. Now, I personally feel in a lot of cases they can be red herrings and not as good as people think that they are. Now, they're definitely good abilities to have. I just think that they're overhyped a lot. And for me personally, I feel that in a lot of cases, for the way I fly at least, I'm having to give up a lot more than I want to in order to justify their use, so that's one reason I don't use them. Now, if you're somebody that likes the ultimate abilities, wants to use them, or everything, then absolutely, heck yes, go for it. But, as far as our specializations and everything goes, whatnot, almost forgot one little thing. As far as the unlocks down below, there's only one ability I really consider to be mandatory, and that's the threat control ability, which you can see there what it grants is free threat generation. Now, we also have our pilot specialization for a lot of the immunities and stuff that it gives, as well as the Lone Wolf ability, which is free defense and shield redistribution. We also have Strategist, which you can see here, for the free taunt, as well as some of the buffs it gives, depending on whether or not you're in threatening stance. For our traits and everything is a free trait. The Nanite Repair Matrix, this comes from the Midnight mission as well. We also have Beam Barrage and Give Your All, which come from the Beam and Engineering R&D schools respectively. Now, a lot of people ask me why I include these, because you have to level the R&D schools to get them. However, I include them because you can do it for free, and my assumption is that while you're leveling the character, you'll have worked one, maybe two of the schools up, and the ones that you chose were the Beam and Engineering schools. We also have the Oh, excuse me. We also have the Fleet Coordinator ability, which is free damage based on your team size. We have Elusive, Opposing Presence, Operative, Beam Training, Point Blank Shot, and Last Ditch Effort. Now, Point Blank Shot does come from the House Pegh mission, so I do want to mention that. Everything else is something you can obtain easily or is free to get. Now, if you're an engineering captain or a science captain, you'll replace Last Ditch Effort with your own career-specific ability. For the starship traits, we have today a full set of 4, which is something we've not had before really in our budget builds. We're using the trait from the ship because, why not? Then we also have the Best Defense, which comes from the House Pegh mission and puts a buff on our attack patterns so that they give increased hull healing. We also have Improved Pedal to the Metal from Pilot, and a trait that I'd honestly forgot that I had, or I would have been running it a lot more, is the Unconventional Tactics. That actually comes from the Strategist specialization, which adds a damage bonus to our Brace for Impact ability. As far as the space reputation goes, we're only using 4 of them because, again, we're assuming you've not unlocked the other spots yet. Now, we have Chrono Capacitor for the Bridge Officer cooldown reduction, the Advanced Targeting Systems for crit severity, the Precision for the critical hit chance, and then Energy Refrequencer for the healing that it can provide. So, I don't have any of the Lucari abilities yet, otherwise I would show some of those off to you guys. I've not really had enough time to work the rep up, but anyways, the next abilities we have are our active reps, which are Deploy Sensor Interference Platform. We also have the Anti-Time Entanglement Singularity. Then we also have our Quantum Singularity Manipulation for the science boost that it gives. I like to throw this before Anti-Time Singularity, so the Anti-Time does a lot more damage. We also have our Biomolecular Shield Generator, which is the big poofy green spherical shield that a lot of people use. So that's some of the abilities that we have there and everything. But let's move on to our Bridge Officer stations really quickly, and then we're going to get into our Starbase 24 run. Now, for the stations on the ship itself, we have first a Lieutenant Universal station. I'm using this as a tactical. We have our Beam Fire at Will 1 and our Attack Pattern Delta. Now, Delta debuffs the enemy while also buffing you. Unless you're getting hit, the Delta effect will not activate. So if you're not getting hit a lot, then you might want to consider swapping this out for Beta. Then for our Lieutenant Commander Universal / Temp Ops, we have the Tactical Team ability. We also have the Beam Fire at Will 2 to allow us to smack anything in range. And we also have our Recursive Shearing ability, which basically takes a snapshot of the enemy's health as it is, then once the effect wears off, it reapplies that same amount of damage to the enemy again. So it allows you to double dip a little bit. Then for our next abilities, we have our Commander Engineering Station, which is Engineering Team 1 for the hull healing and purge of debuffs. We have Reverse Shield Polarity to recharge our shields. We have Emergency Power to Weapons 3 for the energy it gives and energy damage increase that it gives. Getting a little tongue-tied on my words there, folks. But this you will need to pick up from the exchange or get trained by an engineering captain, which we took that into account with the cost of the build. Then we also have the Emit Unstable Warp Bubble, which debuffs all enemies within 4 kilometers for 42% of their damage, as well as their flight speed getting debuffed a good bit. Now this comes from the Delta Flight mission, so it is a free ability to obtain. Then we have a Lieutenant Engineering / Command Station. This gives an Overwhelm Emitters that we have for today, which gives some shield drain to the enemy and regeneration to you. We also have our Rally Point Marker 1, which this gives some hull restoration as well as a bit of shield healing as well. It purges all debuffs and everything while you're inside the bubble itself, so definitely something to have. Then we have our Science Team 1 ability. This gives some shields back to us, as well as purging science debuffs, such as the pesky subnucleonic abilities. And our final ability that we have is the Hazard Emitters 2, which is a heal over time effect, as well as a bit of temporary damage resistance rating, so very nice to have there. Now, as far as our abilities go and everything, like I say, this is what we have for the build, and once we actually get into our Starbase 24, hopefully you'll be able to see how I'm pairing some of them together a little bit, and you'll see how the ship performs. But anyways, guys, I will see you all in our Starbase 24 run. For now, I'll be right back. Welcome to our Starbase 24 run, folks. We're underway at this point with the second wave. Got a good batch of guys we can try to fight. Everything. So let's go ahead and dive right into this. And let's see what kind of damage we can do. Now, the one thing that's absolutely going to suck monkey butts is that we actually do not have a gravity well, so can't really group all those dudes up like I'd want to. I mean, we still can't kick their hind ends, just means we've got to change our tactics up a little bit. Go ahead and throw the Nimbus pirates out. Biggest thing we don't want to do is get surrounded in a situation like this with no grab well. Doesn't matter as much if we have a gravity well, because then we can kind of concentrate all fire at one side. I guess what I'm trying to say is, don't really want to overdo it, but you folks know what I mean. Pick a few of the stronger ones off first. There we go, got our shields back a little. looks like that knocked out his weapons. Right. Wait, never mind. Got our Kabali console back up. Not meaning to bring the ship to a full stop. Enjoy. Don't you just love the obnoxious weapon lockouts? One downside. Fire at will. So they throw out a lot of boarding party shuttles like that in here, which they tend to do. Then it can really slow you down in terms of killing until the shuttles are dealt with. Which is easy enough, but still a little bit annoying. Oh, no you don't, Nagvar. We ain't gonna play that game. Okay, so we cleared a good chunk of that group anyway. As you can see, we climbed up really high on the map. Wasn't really expecting it to go like that. Let's see. Are any of these some of the ones we fought with earlier? I know we broke off a good chunk of these guys over here, so... Oh. Flow of battle dictate we go this way. And you can see we've got a good chunk of boarding party shuttles out at the moment. Hopefully you folks can see kind of how I'm activating the different abilities when I'm using different stuff as well. Shields would come back up at that time. Good lord. Okay, now that we weren't so rudely interrupted by that group. So there's a big group out Starbase, big group of guys over here. Let's see if we can't grab some of these guys. Time ought to slow a few of them down at least. Boarding parties. Gotta love them. Yeah, go down first. Just because he annoys me. And boom goes another Negvar. Blast this guy down a little. And it looks like we got help from a little Miranda class. I'm not going to complain about that. Okay, what do we have left? Well, apparently this guy wants to play, so let's beat the snot out of him. Get rid of that little pest. Little Miranda's hanging in there right with us. Rather surprised, honestly. Usually in here they get blown up by now. Okay, now that we're not rudely interrupted. Let's see. Eeny, meeny, miny, him. Ooh, and he brought a friend. Should be fun. And get rid of those two. Let's grab these guys since we're already right here. Fighter, or did we pull? Oh no, we ain't even gonna play that game. I know where that's going. That a big old fat, We're not even gonna play with them little shuttles. It's that same little Miranda from a minute ago. George, I about believe it is. Well, looks like we actually pulled 4 Nagvars. That's definitely not what I was expecting. Let's finish this guy off. Let's go ahead and spank this Nagvar. Just about good to wrap this up. Just for good measure, 1. And she's our starship trait just a little bit. Oh, looks like we've got another group that wants to play. Agbar in there? Yes, there is. The flow of battle dictates we shall go here. And we shall kick him in the pants. We shall, by George, I tell you. Are you trying to board my ship? For that ye shall walk the plank. Okay, wrong area, yeah, no. Gotta have a little fun once in a while. Looks like little Vorcha wants to finish the fight, since he's about dead anyway. Well, folks, this brings us to the end of our Starbase 24 run. Hopefully y'all have been able to put some of the information in the video to use. Hopefully you enjoyed my little bit of wrong era commentary, all that fun stuff. Anyways, this was our budget build that we did. Total EC cost ended up being just a little over 1.5 million, so not even our full 2 million EC budget. The total amount of fleet credits was about 37,500. The total amount of dilithium spent, including the Phoenix prize pack, the reputation, consoles, all that stuff, came out to about 42,200 dilithium. That may sound like a lot, but that's only about 6 days worth of dilithium. And the total build will take about 6 days in order to make. The only reason for that is because of the dilithium refinement cap. Now, I realized at the time of filming this that the Phoenix prize pack had just cycled out not too long ago. I'm hoping we'll have another cycle here pretty quick. But until the Kobali console comes back around in the Phoenix pack, then I would say use the Trillium deplating until then, or something along those lines. But even then, it's something I wanted to include in our budget this go around because of the Phoenix pack. But anyways, folks, this is Captain Blade J52 signing off.